Okay, let's go to the shocking article that came out 15 or so years ago about the relation between animals and climate change. Let me read a paragraph. Climate change emissions from meat production are far higher than currently estimated, according to a controversial new study, although this is from like 15 years ago, that will fuel the debate on whether people should eat fewer animal products to help the environment. In a paper published by a respected U.S. think tank, the World Watch Institute, 2 World Bank environmental advisors claim that instead of 18% of global emissions being caused by meat, the true figure is 51%. So do you want to comment on that? Because according to this, I don't know what the follow-up was since then, but they're saying that where everyone believes that cars and trucks are causing all the climate change, this is claiming that 51% of climate change or greenhouse gas emissions are caused by the whole system of eating animal products.
Well, it's a lot. I think 18% is a lot. It's actually more than the transportation sector. And that's the figure I'm more comfortable citing. I think that the report from World Watch was compelling and interesting, but the researchers I know, and I'm not qualified to dig into this level of research personally, so it's kind of who do I trust that spends years and decades on it. That's their life's work. But the people that I know that have dug in feel that 51% is probably overstated, if you want to be literal about it, but I think that 18% is quite credible, and it could be higher. One of the big questions is, how do you factor in what the land would have been doing if it wasn't being used for livestock? And if it was in forest, or if it was in certain types of ecosystem that are going to be carbon sinks, that are going to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, then that's something we have to consider. And if you consider that perhaps in the mix, we might say, what is the impact of chopping down and burning tropical rainforest and turning that into cattle pasture, then obviously the carbon impact of that is absolutely massive. But if you're taking land that was already grassland and cattle are grazing, or you're growing grain or soy to feed to cattle in feedlots and so forth, I think generally you can look at numbers different ways. 51% feels pretty high. Humans are doing a lot to impact climate change, but there's no question agriculture is massive, and it's the single thing we can have the greatest impact on the most rapidly. I mean, a person would be better off driving a Hummer as a vegan from a climate perspective than driving a Prius or a Tesla and eating meat, just from an environmental perspective. And in fact, one study said that you'd be better off driving than walking if you're fueling your walking calories with a steak. So there's no question, from a pure climate impact perspective, so there's no question it's big any way you slice it. But I think when we look at what that 100% is, there are so many things that go into it, so many different human activities that are impacting the climate, that I think it's more than just, we can't just put it all on agriculture.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Although I think the credentials actually of these 2 scientists were better than the United Nations scientists who came up with the 18%. They were more senior scientists who came up with the 51%. And I read the rebuttals and the rebuttals to the rebuttals. You had to pay a lot of money to see those articles online, and I decided to pay it because I wanted to find out. And I personally, and I'm not an expert either, but I have in my Ph.D. work, I did quite a bit of quantitative and qualitative research analysis courses and things. And my feeling is that the 51% is really absolutely true, actually. If you're going to look at, because they justified the 51%, I thought, very well with land use, as you were saying, Ocean. And Jeff Anhang, he was one of the 2 researchers, has been recently in touch with Nelson Campbell and saying that actually the 51% is really too low. He said if he could get funding, which it's very difficult to get, he could do more research that would show that the 51% is really too low. It's actually much higher than that. So I think you can't really overstate the devastating impact of animal agriculture in terms of, I don't want to just limit it to climate, because climate is one aspect, which is important, but I mean, destruction of rainforest, destruction of habitat for wildlife. We're in the largest mass extinction of species in 65 million years. I mean, we're losing the genetic wisdom of our planet on a massive scale. Humanity is attacking the library of knowledge of genetics here, causing hundreds of species to go extinct every day, according to the people who are studying this. And it's driven by animal agriculture, destroying these rich environments, the oceans and the rainforests where animals and plants and all beings live, and destroying virtually everything, aquifers, soil, all of that. So when we take it as a large package, and the climate is included in that, it becomes overwhelming. And again, we just don't hear about it because of the bias in the media away from anything that will make the advertisers unhappy.
One thing I'll add to this about the changing climate is that as an infectious disease specialist, we're seeing new pathogens, new microbes that are appearing in New York State that we never have before. I'm a fungal expert, and many fungal infections are what we call geographically localized, that you don't see them outside of certain climates. And an example I'll give you is that there's something called blastomyces, which has never been in New York before. And as of 2018, it's here. And that's because the climate has altered to make it a hospitable one for them. So now when we're on rounds in the morning, we're now discussing whether the patient with what looks like a fungus could have blastomyces. And this is something that we can reverse. We have an opportunity, it's not too late, to change things so that many of these pathogens, these microbes, go back to their home environments. But as the climate continues to alter, we're going to be seeing more and more new threats popping up here and in the surrounding areas.